The world learned about China's human rights abuses from Xinjiang. But if you ask the Tibetans, they see themselves as patient zero in China's cultural genocide. Earlier today, we spoke to Dr. Lobsang Sangay, the president of the Central Tibetan Administration and Prime Minister of the Tibetan government in exile, and I asked him about China's crackdown on minorities, whether the world is doing enough to call out China's abuses, and what role India could play to protect the Tibetans and other minorities in China. Dr. Sangay, welcome to WION.
Good to be on your show, Palki.
We speak at a time when the elections for the Tibetan parliament in exile are underway. The final round of polling is scheduled for the 13th of April. What do you make of the process so far?
So far, we are very proud to say the democracy that was, gifted to us by His Holiness Dalai Lama has been, performing very well. I think you can compare with many other democratic countries in the world, and our democracy system is transparent. And unlike others, where you have to pay freedom tax to vote. So unless you pay your freedom tax, you cannot vote. So it's a very unique system. Tibetans in 30 plus countries all vote on single day. And so if you go all the way to Ladakh to the border, some of the ballot boxes are carried on the backs of horses and ponies. And some are, voting in a very cozy air-conditioned room in New York. So from New Delhi to New York to New Zealand, Tibetans do take part and participate. In the latest preliminary round, we had more than 80+% turnout, even during the pandemic. So that shows that, our democratic system and participation is among the highest in the world.
That's very good to know. The polls also come after a wave of aggressive actions from China. India, as you know, remains locked in a border standoff with China in Ladakh, and Beijing has also intensified its crackdown against minorities at home, including Tibetans. How do you assess China's actions?
Well, unfortunately, in recent years, especially in the last decade, situation in Tibet has gone from bad to worse. Overall, repression of Chinese people at large and Tibetans and quote-unquote minorities like Uyghurs and Mongolians, even in Hong Kong, and the pressure felt in Taiwan are real. So what you see at the border of India is the centuries-old expansionist strategy of the Chinese government is at play. And repression within China towards Tibetans and Uyghurs and Mongolians, they have been continuing for many decades. So for the last 60 years, we've been saying what happened to us, to Tibetans, could be a lesson for India. And many believe that you can befriend China, you can appease China, you can get along with China. But now many people are realizing, including in India and Washington, D.C. and Europe, that that's not the way the Communist Party of China functions. So we always say, you have to verify, then only trust. So we were betrayed before, and we've been the victim so far, and now people are turning around and believing our words. So this is a new beginning as far as China's, their image is concerned.
You're right, the world is learning the hard way. Recent reports also claim that women in Xinjiang's detention camps were subjected to rape and sexual abuse and torture, and we are calling it state-sanctioned rape in China. Last year, we also heard about detention camps in Tibet. Do you think that even after everything that the world has suffered and seen, not enough is being done on global platforms to call out China and to stop its crackdown?
Absolutely not, because the same party secretary, the Chinese person who was party secretary in Tibet Autonomous Region, was sent to Xinjiang Autonomous Region as the party secretary. So the same architect of repression in Tibet continued the repression in China. Similarly, we have been the patient zero as far as repression is concerned. So violation of women's rights and rapes are, we have seen that in Tibet before, and it's really sad to hear it's continuing in Uyghur areas as well. So this is how they intimidate, Tibetans and Uyghurs and Mongolians, and this is how they also try to assimilate them. This is all centuries-old policy to cultural discrimination, and discouraging Tibetan language and other languages so that they could assimilate Tibetans into Chinese, people. So there is political pressure, repression. There is economic incentives and pressure, and then there is forcibly, marrying off or raping, minority women are a common occurrence.
This is something that you've said in the past, what you just said, that when it comes to human rights violations, Tibet was patient zero. These are your words. In recent years, we've also seen how Tibetans have been subjected to cultural genocide, as you mentioned, political indoctrination, forced labor. But when you make statements like these, what does it mean for the middle way approach, the idea of limited autonomy for Tibetans within the Chinese system? Is that still possible after everything? Because this is something that the Dalai Lama has advocated and you have supported. Do you still agree with this solution?
As far as the patient zero is concerned, the Adren Zen, the same author who did expose about labor camps in Xinjiang area, about Uyghurs, did the same expose, wrote about Tibet, that, from January of 2020 to July of 2020, in the last 7 months, 500,000 Tibetans were uprooted from nomadic and rural areas into urban setting where they are given like military drill-like training for what they call, poverty elevation, skill training, but essentially it's cultural assimilation. Yes, these are horrible things that's happening, so we condemn all these things. Having said that, our policy remains middle way approach because it's a fact that, because we believe in nonviolence, we have to have dialogue to solve the issue, and we have to come to a middle ground. So that's why, China says one China cannot be compromised, their sovereignty cannot be compromised. Then His Holiness Dalai Lama said, okay, let's come to the middle and give us genuine autonomy for the Tibetan people. And, within the framework of the Chinese constitution, we will take that as a solution. Now, for a rational, reasonable person, this is a win-win proposition. So yes, it is still on the table. Now, unfortunately, the Chinese leadership has been stubborn and unreasonable. That's why, we continue to see repression in Tibet, but at the same time, resistance by the Tibetans. 155 Tibetans have committed self-immolations. They have burned themselves. So recently, one Tibetan youth was tortured to death because of after the protests. So the resistance is continuing. That means the hardline policies of Chinese government is not succeeding. So middle way is the solution.
Even after what happened to Hong Kong, what happened in Hong Kong, you believe limited autonomy under the Chinese rule is a viable solution?
Now, that's what we like to believe. In Hong Kong, yes, they were promised one country, two system, but, they went back on their words, basic law, and they started violating, right? So if that continues, then that's problematic. But what we are saying is genuine autonomy promised to Tibetans should be implemented as per the promise and as per the letter of the agreement we will have.
Indeed, and India has always had a very special relationship with Tibet and Tibetans. What role would you like Delhi to play to highlight China's human rights abuses beyond what is being already done?
Yes, on the one hand, we always agree that India has done the most for Tibetans because the largest number of Tibetans are here. All the monasteries and cultural institutions that were destroyed in Tibet were rebuilt here, and we have revived our civilization culture right here in India, thanks to the government and leaders of India and the people of India. Having said that, India also, in some ways, gave away Tibet. When Tibet was invaded and occupied in 1950s, India could have, done a bit more than what was done or continues to do. For example, even the news media calls, it's Indo-China border. So when the Chinese troops come to Galwan Valley and crosses the river and the violence ensued, and media included, intellectuals, everybody are complaining, why are they crossing the border? Why are they here? But the fact that when you said Tibet, is part of China, the Chinese troops will say, yes, I'm coming to my territory because you say so. You say it's China's border, I've come to the border, right? Now the argument is over. No, we meant across the river, we meant that mountaintop, not this mountaintop, right? When you have already given up 2.5 million square kilometers of land, almost 2/3 of India's land size, when you argue about one mountaintop or across the river or this road or that road, right, it sounds so small. So I think India should not lose the larger picture. Historically, it was always a border between Tibet and India. So I think the former finance minister of Tibet said, he wrote it to Pandit Nehru also, at the moment, India has only 75 security personnel guarding the border. That's all it was needed to guard, such a long border, right? Only 75 personnel. Now, if India doesn't intervene, the price will be huge down the line. Now, even at Galwan area only, we hear in the news media that 30,000 some Indian troops from this side and 30,000 from the Chinese side have come, and billions of dollars are spent on a yearly basis just for the security. So when Tibet was independent, only 75 Indian soldiers were guarding the border. So cost was less than a small village security, So now we are paying a huge price. India also has to accept that unless you solve the Tibet issue, the peace or harmony between India and China is not likely.
Yes, I think some mistakes of history cost governments dear. Many say the succession of the 14th Dalai Lama is the next flashpoint between Tibetans and China. You know that the United States Congress passed the Tibet Policy and Support Act. You've mentioned it, a law that says the right to choose the next Dalai Lama falls with the Tibetans. Do you expect India to take a similar stand?
Yes, right to choose His Holiness Dalai Lama, or for that matter, any reincarnated Lama, should be exclusively with the Tibetans, because we invented the reincarnation tradition, So we have full patent and copyright over it, right? So Chinese government can manufacture duplicates, but duplicates are duplicates, original is original, right? Now, as far as India is concerned, it's a very simple stand. For 5,000 plus years, the Swamis and Shankaracharyas or any religious leaders are selected or elected by the people of their faith. Government never intervened. So this has been a age-old stand of India. So all India needs to say is yes, among all the Hindu religion, denominations or Christian or any faith in India, religious leaders are selected or elected by the people of that faith. Similarly, as far as Dalai Lama and other reincarnations are concerned, Tibetans should have the final say, and Chinese government should not have any say. Nor India will interfere in this, nor China should interfere in this. So, this is a clear-cut stand. I think India has 5,000 years of history and evidence to back it up.
Yes, but China is not India. China also interferes with the Catholic Church and decides who the bishops will be. So you're dealing with a different beast. How do you think the Tibetan community will respond to China's attempts to pick the next Dalai Lama?
Well, we'll say it's nonsense. Because, after the invasion and occupation of Tibet, 98% of Tibetan monasteries and nunneries were destroyed. 99% of monks and nuns were destroyed. Our religious artifacts were burned and looted. Our scriptures were burned for weeks and months. So if you look at the track history of the last 60 years, the Chinese government has done nothing but destroy, discourage Buddhism. So with that kind of track record, and the Communist Party, which believes in atheism and says religion is poison, why are they interested in reincarnation of Dalai Lamas, or for that matter, any other Lamas? So His Holiness jokingly says, but partly true, if the Chinese Communist Party is so, is so interested in reincarnation, then they must find the reincarnation of Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai and Chu Te, the founding fathers of Communist Party, and then build some credibility. Then they can say, now we know we are going to extend it to other lamas as well, right? So they don't practice reincarnation in the Communist Party system. And as far as spirituality is concerned, they have no faith. And their track record is destruction and discouragement. So they have zero credibility. So we will accept our Dalai Lama and our reincarnated lamas, our ways. That's how we have done it for the last 1,000 years, and that will continue.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sangay. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you so much, Palki ji.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.